How does resource dependency impact the environment across the world? As cities expand and populations grow, resource demands increase, impacting ecosystems and communities globally. Today, we'll explore four key areas: deforestation, overfishing, water scarcity, and livestock farming. In many developing nations, communities rely heavily on natural resources for their daily survival. Without strong regulations or widespread sustainable practices, this dependency often leads to environmental degradation that impacts both people and ecosystems. In developed nations, advanced technology and strict regulations often help manage natural resources more effectively, but this does not eliminate the environmental impact.
The rich greens of the most vibrant habitat on Earth. The billions of trees store so much carbon they help to slow down global warming. They're also home to an amazing tenth of all species in the natural world. Some unnerving, others adorable. But the sight of bare earth and dead trunks is becoming more common, with huge tracts of forest wiped out. My footsteps and distant bird song are the only sounds. It's tragic to see this close up. To bring these trees down to the ground, they just knocked them over with a bulldozer. This is happening all over the Amazon to create new farmland. And the result is that the great forest has never been under such pressure.
Starting with deforestation. In rural communities, wood is a critical resource for fuel, cooking, and construction. However, without sustainable management, this cycle of cutting trees leads to deforestation, soil erosion, and reduces biodiversity. While developed countries have stricter laws for logging and often can engage in reforestation efforts, global demand for these resources drives deforestation in other parts of the world. Developed nations thus contribute indirectly to deforestation, exporting the environmental impact while consuming their products.
Overfishing is a major issue, especially for coastal communities reliant on fishing for their livelihood. Limited access to equipment forces people to fish near the shore, depleting local populations and disrupting food security. Without regulations, fish stocks decline rapidly, threatening marine biodiversity and local economies. Industrial scale fishing by developed nations worsens this. Massive fleets deplete global stocks, leaving fewer resources for smaller fisheries in developing countries. Stricter international regulations are crucial to address this growing challenge and protect both biodiversity and livelihoods.
Lake Malawi, an ecological treasure and Africa's third largest body of fresh water, is home to over 1,000 species of fish, many found only here. They have long been a critical source of income and food for the surrounding population. But fishing boats are coming home with lighter and lighter nets.
It was easy to catch fish in the past, but these days people find it difficult. They can go fishing in the evening and return in the morning with only 2 tins of fish. Fish is now scarce.
The change is due to a combination of overfishing and climate change. Extreme weather has meant less but more violent rainfall. Over the last few years, the 29,000 square kilometer lake has begun to recede.
Water scarcity affects millions, particularly in rural areas of developing countries. Many people travel miles for water, often from populated or unreliable sources. Climate change worsens the scarcity, while the lack of infrastructure forces communities to prioritize between drinking, farming, and daily needs. In developed countries, water scarcity arises more from pollution and overuse. High consumption, irrigation, and industrial demands strain resources. Urban runoffs and agricultural chemicals contaminate water, requiring energy-intensive treatment systems that can create additional environmental challenges.
Lastly, in developing nations, agriculture is predominantly small-scale and subsistence-based. Livestock farming is essential for rural economies, providing food, labor, and income. Livestock farming often involves mixed-crop livestock systems where animals provide essential services such as draft power, manure for fertilization, and a source of income. However, without managed grazing practices, overgrazing depletes vegetation, leading to soil degradation and desertification. Animal waste is often not properly managed, which pollutes nearby water sources and increases methane emissions, contributing to local air and water pollution. On the other hand, livestock farming in developed nations is a highly industrialized process producing significant quantities of beef, dairy, and other animal products. While these systems are efficient, they also have a high environmental cost, including methane emissions, water use, and large amounts of waste. The use of confined animal feeding operations produces concentrated waste that can contaminate local water supplies, and the scale of meat production in developed nations contributes significantly to greenhouse gas emissions, which have global climate impacts. So, why do we see such disparities in resource dependency and environmental impact between developing and developed countries? One major factor is economic inequality, much of which stems from historical influences like colonialism that created uneven development patterns across the globe. These historical factors left many developing countries with weaker regulatory frameworks, fewer resources to enforce environmental protections, and more dependencies on natural resources to meet basic needs. In contrast, developed nations have benefited from years of industrialization and technological advancement, which allows them to manage natural resources more effectively. However, high consumption in wealthier countries places a considerable strain on global resources, often leading to unsustainable practices in developed nations that supply them.
Addressing these issues requires tailored solutions that account for economic and social differences, as well as global collaboration. This is where interdisciplinary research, like the Interactive Qualifying Projects, IQPs, at WPI plays a vital role. WPI students tackle real-world problems through projects like urban heat mapping, water quality assessment, and sustainable land use, working with local communities to create practical, impactful solutions. Whether it's conserving forests, protecting water sources, or promoting sustainable agriculture, these initiatives highlight how collaboration and innovation can help us build a resilient, sustainable future together.